Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest Chapter 180 is officially out, and this was a great chapter. We had some really good action, we got some Dragon God versus Dragon God action, and we got to see Gray and Wendy work together in a really fun and interesting way, and we got to see what's going up with the Lacrimas in this chapter as well. We had some nice moments, and we got some clarifications on how last chapter ended, so we're gonna get into that. But before we jump into things, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And if you want to see me talk about multiple different manga series at the same time, go and check out my weekly manga podcast, Shonen Pulse, where me, Nox, and Yadogami talk about 9 different manga from 3 separate magazines on a weekly basis. If you see any of the series that you're currently reading and want to hear our thoughts on it and join the conversation, go check it out. Or if you're looking for something new to read, skim our discussions and see if anything catches your eye, and maybe you'll find a brand new favorite. Links to that channel will be in the title card and in the description down below. And if you want to see me talk about American comic books, go and check out my second channel that I recently made, GW Comics, where I'm primarily talking about Marvel and DC. Right now I'm doing videos on Ultimate Marvel Comics, and I'm preparing a much larger video going over the opening acts of the Absolute Batman run. So go check it out. It's a passion project, and I would really appreciate it if you guys checked it out. Link to the title will also be in the description and the title card. Now then, on with the video. Chapter 180 of 100 Years Quest, titled To the Kind Moon. The cover image this time is of Gray playing darts with Juvia cheering for him in the background. Obviously, these two are on a date, and I love it. And Mashima, please give us at least a bonus chapter or something between this arc and the next, with just Gray and Juvia on a date or something. It'd be very wholesome, people would love it. But the chapter picks up directly from last week after Selene, the Moon Dragon God, just shows right up out of nowhere, and Wendy plops out of the portal that she created. And the Dragon Gods are staring at each other and at the unconscious Wendy. Gray goes over to Wendy to see what they're doing here, as Wendy just said that she followed Selene through that hole right in the first place. And Gray is asking what happened to Selene's lacrima, and apparently it vanished. And when Wendy and Carla ask about Viernes's, Gray said that it was on his back, but now it's gone. Gray helps Wendy up, and the two of them get in a fighting pose, getting ready to team up and take on the Dragon Gods 2v2. But they're surprised, as in the next instance, Selene goes on the attack to take on Viernes, causing a massive shockwave, knocking the two of them back and surprising them, with Carla actually remembering, oh right, the Dragon Gods hate each other, which is something that I actually kind of forgot about for a second there. Makes sense, they kind of kept each other in check and no one wanted to fight the other in case another Dragon God showed up to try and take advantage, and they just never liked each other to begin with, so it makes sense that the second Selene shows up where Viernes is, she's gonna go on the attack. And we actually get to see what's going on with Selene soon, but Selene then prepares a giant attack, casting a chant, and launches her Moonlight Shangri-La, launching a bunch of moonlit attacks right on the battlefield, hitting Viernes, but Gray and Wendy are just out of reach. But Viernes is then attacked from behind from Selene. She then lands a massive kick on him, and as Viernes turns around, in that instance, he launches a golden fist from the ground to hit Selene. But she dodges through a portal and then appears right underneath Viernes to land another punch against him that Viernes blocks, causing another massive shockwave, launching Wendy, Carla, and Gray away. And as the two of them get their bearings, Selene and Viernes continue a stare down, with Selene obviously still looking incredibly menacing. Now, they're wondering what they're going to do, but Wendy brings up that a fight against Dragon Gods would actually be kind of like two natural disasters hitting the area. And Gray rather comedically thinks of Juvia for like rain and Loxus for lightning, so he's kinda right. A bit of a weird way. But Wendy brings up that Selene isn't usually like this. She's kind and just wants to be human, which confirms that Wendy did not heal or bring Selene back to her senses from the end of last chapter, and that it wasn't off screen, which kind of implies that Wendy was going off to face Selene, but Selene just teleported away to where Viernes is, and so that's why Wendy is here now. So that's a good thing. I'm glad that that whole aspect wasn't cut off screen. But Gray, obviously getting serious, strips, and the two of them get ready to go after Viernes together and give Selene a hand. Kind of make this fight end quicker. The two of them charge, go past Selene, as Wendy tells her that they're on her side and for Selene to come to her senses. And Selene's surprised, but I love the shading in her eyes that shows that she's not quite in her right mind, like she's in a bit of a haze or a rageful state, still going kind of berserk, but still having her senses to a degree to actually hold a conversation. Gray actually, for the first time in this fight, thankfully, enters his devil form, ends up getting his black markings, and Wendy places the Dragon Slayer enchantment on him, which I'm glad we're finally fully showing Wendy giving the enchantments to these guys so they can actually fight the dragon gods and deal actual damage, because that was a complaint with the Viernes fight in the previous arc. Wendy didn't seem to give Dragon Slayer enchantments to like Lucy, Erza, Gray, or Minerva, so it just felt like they were just launching attacks for nothing. We would just have to imply that they had those seals or something. But I'm glad that this happened, because that plus Gray's devil powers is definitely going to do something. As Wendy says that this is the power to slay dragons. As Gray then launches a Dragon Slayer amplified long sword of Ice Demon Zero right across Viernes' chest as the ice begins to creep. But Selene yells at them to stay out of her fight. Wendy gets in her way, saying that she's gonna promise to bring Selene back to normal. Selene stares at Wendy for a second and is charging up an attack to completely annihilate her. But Wendy says she's gonna use the power that she received from Irene, and in that instance actually manages to cancel out Selene's magic before it launches, as Selene is wondering who this kid actually is. Wendy jumps into the air, saying that she's a Dragon Slayer. Carla transforms, and the two of them get a combo attack, with Wendy and Carla jumping off each other, and Wendy using the momentum for a Sky Dragon Sword Edge. And in an instant, she manages to headbutt Selene full force in her gut, taking a page right out of Natsu. Also, this actually looks like a reference to Dragon Ball when Goku headbutted Tien in their finals in the World Martial Arts Tournament for the first time, which honestly, that is a really cool reference. Also, Wendy taking a page out of her older brother Natsu's book and just going full force and dealing a massive blow, just technically thinking with her head, which I kind of find hilarious. But yeah, Wendy deals a blow to Selene in a quick instance while she's not really giving her any mind with Irene's power. And in that instance when she headbutts Selene, she then grabs onto her with all of her strength, as she begins to use a separation enchantment on Selene, as thanks to Gray, Wendy found out what's up with the lacrima, as it then explodes out of Selene's back. As it begins to creak out, Wendy calls for Carla, and Carla then ends up smashing through the dragon lacrima with her White Sun's attack. As the chapter ends with Wendy smiling and Selene seemingly might be snapped back into her senses. As that ends the chapter. I'm just gonna say this, I think it might be implied that Carla also has the Dragon Slayer mark thanks to Wendy, I believe. We didn't really see it, but that's the only reason for Carla to actually be able to touch or do anything to the dragon's lacrima. But either way, really solid chapter. Also, just want to mention, I guess that wasn't fully ice. That might have actually been the lacrima that disappeared once Gray ended up causing Viernes to go human mode. Now, I want to address one quick thing. There's going to be people complaining about Wendy being able to deal damage to Selene, but you need to remember a few things, which is something that I had to remind myself for as well. Stated that Wendy, in this instance, started to use some of the power left by Irene. And two, I completely forgot about this, but when the dragon gods are in their human forms, they are technically weaker. It is a way for them to fight a bit more quicker, but also as kind of a nerf onto themselves, as a way to show their superiority, that they could go down to the level of humans and still be able to beat the ever-loving crap out of them and they can do nothing. But since Wendy is a Dragon Slayer, she's using momentum, she's catching Selene by surprise, and with Irene's power, which you'll forget how cracked Irene was in Fairy Tail, and even in 100 Years Quest for the brief moments we've seen her actually help Wendy, it makes sense how Wendy was able to get a decent attack in, and then with a separation enchantment, force the lacrima out of Selene, and then they break it, and now Selene's gonna fully be back to her sense. Everything makes sense, and I'm very glad for that. Also, the brief clash between these two dragon gods was honestly really cool. We got to see them just crash into each other, throw hands, and Selene was just being the ever-loving trickster that she is, utilizing her teleportation and spatial magic to actually get one over on Viernes and catch him off guard a few times. But Viernes also was not pulling any punches, which I'm glad. He was able to just keep even with Selene despite her very tricky ability. I'm also glad we have the Dragon Slayer seal back. It's very much needed, especially now. And I'm glad Gray is using his devil form finally, because that is something we've all been wondering why he hasn't used this arc whatsoever. It definitely would have done something. But it still kind of sucks that Gray doesn't really have any like super big moments. But hey, he's using his devil powers, he's got the seal. Hopefully now it's lean back into their senses, they know tag team Vierness, and we get one massive fight. And lastly, I do like that the Lacrimas disappeared and kind of merged with the Dragon Gods at the end of the day. It does seem like over time the Dragon Gods were meant to turn back into human forms. Like once they felt to go into human forms, the Lacrimas would seemingly get absorbed into them and keep them in a bit of a dazed berserker state, still having wits and thinking for themselves, but being in that state of wanting to destroy, fight with the Lacrima within them. So that is an interesting way to also counteract, oh, the Lacrimas are their bane weakness to snap them out of it. Oh, if they're absorbed in the Dragon God's body, then they can just stay in that state for a while. That's actually a surprisingly good idea. And well, if Wendy wasn't there, Gray definitely would have been screwed, and nobody would have been able to snap Selene out of it without Wendy figuring out that the Lacrima was in Selene. So honestly, really cool thinking. Wish this was more like 2 chapters to flesh this out a bit more. I feel like we'll get more of an explanation next chapter. But that's really all I gotta say on the matter. But what do you guys think of this chapter? How do you feel about this fight between the Dragon Gods? Even though it was relatively brief, I liked it, but what did you guys think about it? And how do you feel about Wendy being able to save Selene in this chapter and it not being off-screen the last chapter, but it instead being for this chapter? Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Now with that all said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.